It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Millersville's assistant track and field throwing coach, Coach Brittany Hartman. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into starting coaching collegiate track and field?
Honestly, I didn't know at the time. It kind of just fell into my lap. I had finished my undergrad in '07. I still had another year of school, and our head coach at the time was like, "Hey, do you want to be a student assistant?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And kind of graduating that year, I kind of had a lot of fun, kind of learning a little bit more about the events as I was coaching them, and kind of watching the kids compete. And that summer, he said, "Hey, we're opening up a part-time or quarter-time position. Do you think you have interest in kind of being, one of our throws coaches?" Because we didn't really have, I want to say, an actual throws coach at the time. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot," and kind of the rest is history from there.
What was that experience like going to Millersville and getting to compete collegiately?
It was a lot of fun, honestly, because I wasn't. I don't want to say I was a great athlete. I was kind of mediocre at best. So the fact that I was actually able to compete at the collegiate level kind of was a pretty cool experience, and I had a lot of fun during my time competing. And I think that's kind of uh, what kind of made me want to stay in the sport of track and field and kind of keep with it, and just try to stay involved in some manner, whether it be coaching or officiating or something like that.
While in college, what was that experience like getting to be a part of the throwing program at Millers? And what discipline were you specialized in?
Well, it was kind of a little bit of a strange experience at first, just because we didn't really necessarily have a throws coach. So it was kind of, we had coaches that kind of knew the throwing events, but not really specialized in it. So it was kind of hard to I guess get a feel for how to train properly, just to be a better athlete. So my junior year was the first year we actually had a real throws coach, and that was the first year where we actually started to throw hammer in our conference. Um, and I would say definitely the hammer was probably my discipline, just because I kind of took to that a little bit more than the shot or the discus or the javelin, just based on my size alone. So it kind of just was an easier event to understand for me.
How was that experience like getting to put on that track uniform and represent Millersville?
I loved it. I mean, we have another assistant coach here now. He competed the same time. We were both in the program together, and I mean, we'll kind of say we bleed black and gold. So, from competing to coaching now, we're kind of with the program for the long haul, and just kind of really enjoyed that time, and really enjoying our time now as well.
What was that transition like from you from, as you said, going from being an athlete to then getting onto the coaching staff?
I think the hardest part was just trying to uh, keep the relationships with the athletes that I was currently on the team with, but also kind of know how to kind of put a professional, barrier there. And I think that's always a hard part when you're a young coach, because they know you when you're their teammate, so they're going to be like, well, we can still hang out and whatever. And I'm like, no, we kind of can't. I'm at a level now where I have to have that professional barrier. And they're like, okay. But it was helpful in the sense that I kind of had those relationships, because they kind of knew who I was, and that they could kind of trust what I was telling them, which is always kind of a nice thing to have.
What was that feeling like for you to get to come back to your alma mater to coach versus going, let's say, to another school and starting your career there?
Um, I mean, it was great because it wasn't much of a change for me. I came right out of college, right to coaching at Millersville, and like I said, I bleed black and gold. I don't think I could see myself anywhere else, honestly, just because I know I'm at a point now where I kind of really know how the program works, and working with our other assistant coach and our head coach, like we work really well together. We've been kind of here the same amount of years at this point. So, I mean, it's nice to have that consistency and kind of not going to a program that you kind of see, a revolving door of coaches, and you never know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there.
While your time as an athlete, did you ever know that you wanted to be a college coach, and when was that moment that you knew?
I actually had no idea, to tell you the truth. I mean, I always kind of had a joy of learning about the events. So, I mean, I'm sure it was somewhere in the back of my mind subconsciously that maybe like it was an idea. I did do a sports management program at Millersville as well. So, I mean, I think that kind of put it a little bit more to the forefront that I actually, I might actually enjoy doing this for a living.
Of course, as a throwings coach, what is it like getting to coach those shot putters, those distant throwers, and those javelers?
It's fun. It's hard at times because I'm the only person coaching the throws events, so I have to be very good at kind of splitting the practices so that everybody gets the time and effort that they deserve, and I'm not kind of floating from event to event, and keeping, I guess, the fundamentals straight as far as like what's the javelin, what's the shot put, what's the discus, what's the hammer. But I do enjoy it a lot, and just kind of seeing, I guess, how kids grow in the sport, which is always fun, and how they adapt to what I'm trying to teach them versus what they've known or whatever.
What does a typical track meet look like for throwings coaches and throwing athletes?
Very long. Usually for our outdoor meet, we're starting pretty early in the morning because I mean some of those meets they get a lot of throwers, and you might be at a competition for, I don't know, from 9 a.m. till 7 o'clock at night, just trying to get through all the events and through all the throwers. So it's sometimes it's a little hard, I think, for them to try to keep the energy up, and having to compete and then have a little bit of downtime, get ready to compete again. So it's trying to figure out how to get them to, I'd say, warm up without over warming up so that they can kind of have a little bit of energy to make it through the day.
What are some of the big differences between competing in throwings in indoors versus competing in throwings outdoors?
I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference. I prefer the outdoor events just because um, I, in a way, I feel like our team especially is a little bit more geared towards that. That's what we focus on. We focus on the outdoor season, just because we don't call ourselves an indoor team. Um, and I feel like it caters a little bit more to people who can kind of power through some of those events, especially in like the shot and the weight put throw, where you have to be a little, or weight throw, you have to be a little more athletic for the events outdoors, I feel like. And I think that's kind of the big difference that I see.
Of course, what was that like in 2018, getting to have a female represent Millersville and go to the NCAA championship?
It was awesome. I mean, that was, I think, the first year she won. She did come back next year and win again, which it was honestly unexpected. And I think that was kind of the best part about it. I mean, there's always like potential of her to be able to do that, and she just happened to kind of be the athlete that day that was kind of on versus what her competitors were doing, and she was kind of really good at kind of bringing that energy she needed to compete. So I mean, it was a lot of fun watching that, and then like in the moment, I honestly didn't know what to think, and sometimes I still come back like, wow, did that really happen?
Of course, how is that like when she came back home with first place after that competition?
Oh, it was great. Also, a lot of people were really kind of excited, and they're like sending us congratulations, and just kind of saying we can't wait to see what happens outdoors, and it was just a lot of fun, just kind of trying to continue to progress forward from there.
As a Hammers throwers coach, what has that been like? Obviously, having consecutive wins in your conference.
Pretty cool, honestly. That's, I feel like, one of the prides of our program, and it's kind of the one thing that when we talk to recruits, like Coach Andy will say, we've won 8 consecutive titles now in the PSAC and the Hammer, and I think it's a little bit the fact that we kind of pushed the hammer throw from the beginning of the year, so we're not spending a lot of time throwing the weight. We're just throwing the hammer year round, and just working on footwork there, and I think that kind of helps put us a step ahead, and it's kind of been fun holding on to that title, and like I hope we continue to, for sure. We have a couple of wild cards in the mix this year, so you don't really ever know what's going to happen. But I mean, it's kind of been fun while we've held on to it, for sure.
Of course, as a throwing coach, what is that like? Obviously, helping your athletes keep that momentum and make sure that their balance is good when doing shot put and hammer throwing.
It's, I mean, it's good. I want to say, trying to think of what I want to say. It's fun kind of seeing them, kind of start to gain a really good understanding of the bench, so they can kind of keep that balance momentum moving forward. And most of it just comes down to understanding, like, kind of what I'm trying to get them to do, and what the goal is and what they're trying to accomplish, I would say.
Can you talk about, of course, the throwings program that you have started to build for Millersville?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started probably around 2013 was when we started to kind of have some like really good success, where we were starting to see people kind of, start to get on the podium, and kind of push for first place and whatnot. And I just kind of keep coming back to kind of preaching this idea of building a legacy in our program. And I think a lot of them kind of take to that idea, and they're like, yeah, you know what? Everybody before us has kind of been willing to put the work in, and wanted to be here to work hard and try to achieve those goals. So we want to keep continuing and adding on to this legacy, and hopefully kind of push it even further. And I think it's fun kind of seeing them kind of buy into that a little bit, and just understanding that we're trying to make ourselves kind of, I guess, have a name for ourselves, like some of these other programs. Like, I feel like we're a little bit more unknown. So, I mean, it's nice the fact that, they're kind of willing to do that and help us kind of get on the map there.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each competition track meet?
A lot of the PSAC schools, which is like Shippensburg, Kutztown, ESU, Westchester, Bloomsburg, any places like that. And then we'll kind of compete against a mix of other schools as well. Some Division threes, F&M, E-Town, really anybody that's going to be at the meet. That's who we're competing against.
Of course, what does that home meet look like for your throwing players?
Oh, awesome. Like, the energy there is just like, it's totally different from when we're at an away meet. Like, they want to defend their home territory, so everybody's kind of fired up a little bit more than normal, and just kind of ready to go and ready to compete. Especially, I think a lot of times, it's not always our first meet, but a lot of times it kind of ends up being like that really first, sometimes okay weather. Like, it's starting to get a little bit warmer during the day, which is, kind of adds to that energy, and having them ready to kind of show what they can do. And I think it helps when they have a lot of their family there, just because it is a home meet, so people show up a little bit more, and more fans for us versus other teams, which is adds to the atmosphere as well.
Of course, what is that like, obviously competing against teams in your conference like Shippensburg versus competing with different teams like, let's say, UCLA?
it's nice because it's kind of funny in a sense that there's always kind of a strange competitive camaraderie between our schools. So like, we'll go to like our conference meet or even just a regular meet, and all the other schools are we're cheering for each other because everybody wants to see everybody do well, and kind of push each other to that next level, which kind of makes what's great about our conference, I'd say. Like, they, even though everybody wants to kind of win in the end, they're also going to help you get to that next level as well. So it's always fun competing against schools like ESU and SHIP and Westchester for that reason, just because a lot of the girls know each other pretty well, and they want to keep everybody in a positive mindset to do their best at those meets.
What is that atmosphere like when teams like, let's say UCLA, when you go to compete against them and have them bring their exposure for your athletes?
I mean, I think when we go back against like really good Division I programs, I mean, I think it's nice. It's almost nice for them to see because, we maybe sometimes we have girls that could compete at that level, but for like the ones that are kind of breaking into it, it's nice for them to see like what some of those other schools are doing, and I mean, it can be a little bit intimidating, I think, at first, but I mean, in the end, everybody's there to compete, and hopefully it helps push them a little bit. I think sometimes it does, especially if they're a good competitor, so they know how to kind of keep their head in the game and not necessarily get distracted by the fact that they're going up against the Division I program.
As a throwing coach, what are some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes when out on the road recruiting them?
I don't get out on the road a whole lot to do recruiting. Our head coach takes care of a lot of that, but for the most part, we try to look at their marks, what I would say their build generally. So like if they have a good athletic build, like even if the marks that they're hitting in high school aren't necessarily what we might look for, we might be able to say, hey, you know what, you might make a good hammer thrower because they don't have hammer in high school. So you don't ever know with that. And we've gotten lucky, I think, in that sense, where we've had a lot of kids that were kind of flying under the radar and ended up actually being really good hammer throwers for us because, they don't have strength in this area, but you never know what could come out of just giving them a new event.
Of course, what is that experience like, as you said, with high school not having hammer throwers? And let's say a shot putter, you recruit a shot putter. What is that like, taking a shot putter and turning it into a hammer thrower?
I honestly love doing that because it's the hammer's probably my favorite event to coach. So it's always fun just to kind of get them started on that, and you can I feel like see in the first week or two if like they're going to have like an inclination towards that event. So it's always kind of fun to get them started on doing those hammer turns and get them introduced to that and just see what comes out of it.
Of course, for those prospective student athletes, what does that official visit look like when coming to Millersville and seeing the campus and seeing the facility?
Well, we do it two different ways. So we either do overnight visits or we do day visits. So a lot of times kids will come on campus. They'll be able to spend the day with some of our athletes and kind of go into classes, getting a feel for the university atmosphere. They'll come to a practice so they can talk and chat with us. Even if they've already done so, they can kind of at least get a sense of what a practice would look like. How we kind of run it from a day-to-day basis, maybe get a feel for our lifting program. And then, if they're staying overnight, they get a sense of what it is like to stay in the dorms overnight. But I'd say that's the gist of it. It's basically just getting a feel for campus and understanding if they would fit in there, if they feel comfortable there, if they could see themselves on that team, and getting along with the rest of the athletes we currently have.
Of course, what is that like, obviously seeing those freshmen put on that black and gold uniform and represent Millersville for the first time?
It's fun because I feel like that's the first time, you get to really see what they're going to be made of, and kind of where they're going to go from there. So it's exciting in that sense, because I mean, normally I feel like a lot of freshmen, they get a little bit of like scared during their first meet. So like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And the ones that can kind of keep that in check, it's like they can honestly surprise you. And I think we've had that several times over the years where you just don't know what to expect. And it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we got something here.
As a throwing coach, what is it like when you have those athletes that make those personal best or even those record-breaking years?
It's exciting. Like I tend, and my athletes could attest to this, like I tend not to really show like a whole lot of emotion throughout the season, I'd say. And we always kind of go with the thought of staying like satisfied, but always hungry. And even though like I am excited that they kind of reached level, I feel like there's always the thought in my head, like, yeah, we could go further, and there's potential to do better. And I think they kind of keep that in the back of their mind too. Like, yeah, I reached my goal, but I know I can do better now.
As a throwing coach, what is it like seeing those athletes go on and go into professional throwing in track and field, whether it's Team USA, Canada, or even just for throwing in general?
Well, I haven't had anybody do that yet. I've had a couple that I think had the potential to, but just life comes up, other opportunities, kind of pop up that they can't pass up. But I mean, I honestly feel like it would be a pretty cool experience to kind of see that. And I hope one day, like, I have somebody that is kind of willing to kind of put in that time and sacrifice to go to that next level. Just to kind of see what they can keep continuing to do, or where they can keep progressing from where they started with us.
What are some of your future plans for the throwing program moving forward?
We just want to keep building. I mean, we're a little bit small this year. We only have 5 girls, but 4 of them are returners, and we got one freshman, and I think she's going to be a little bit of a dark horse for us, which is nice. She's kind of come into her own, and same with some of our returners. They're kind of very strong, and they have a lot of goals, and hopefully we just kind of continue to build on that legacy that we started back in 2013, and that's what I hope to see us continue to do.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen looking to compete in track and field as a thrower?
I'd say just reach out to coaches. Just make sure you're filling out recruiting forms. That's what we have most of our. If we have anybody email us, say just, hey, fill out this recruiting form. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to like call and email and just say, like, I'd like to come out for a visit, and then just make sure they're getting out for visits. I think that's like the biggest part, because that's kind of where, when you find out if you're going to fit into the program or not, just getting a feel for the team and the campus. And I think that's really the biggest part of it.
What advice would you give those first year college students that are looking to compete in throwing for a track program?
Don't be afraid to work hard. Some of them, and I just said this actually to our freshmen the other day, was kind of, don't be afraid to come out of somebody's shadow. Like, don't do what they're doing just because that's what you think you should be doing. Like, don't just push yourself. Don't be afraid to lift a little bit heavier or do a little bit more just because you have upperclassmen that that you can hide behind or whatever. And it's like, not to say that they're not doing what they should be doing, but don't fall in line just because you're a freshman.
What advice would you give those throwers in college that are looking to go on and represent Team USA or Canada and one day make the Olympics?
Probably similar to what I would tell a freshman: just work hard. You're probably be willing to make sacrifices. I'm sure. I don't necessarily know what that would all entail, but just keep pushing the envelope and putting your name out there, and don't fall off training, because I think that's the biggest part. Like, you have to keep training and to get better and just making sure you're, ready to go.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to get into coaching on the collegiate side after their career ends?
I would say just getting the foot in the door. I mean, we had our girl that won the NCAA championship in 2018 and 19. She did a GA position at Bloomsburg actually, because she wanted to stick with coaching and in the sport of track and field, and she's actually back volunteering and coaching with us now because she wasn't ready to kind of get out of it, and even though she's not necessarily getting paid for it, she's still plays a part, and she really enjoys it. And I think she says like every day, like if there was a full-time position that opened up somewhere, I'd go to it in a heartbeat, especially if it paid the bills and whatever. But I mean, I think that's the big thing, just to be willing to kind of take opportunities as they come.
What advice would you give those college coaches out there that are looking to get into the throwing programs?
I think, do your research, try to know your stuff, and then just, kind of the same thing, just make sure you're putting yourself out there and looking for opportunities to try to get your foot in the door to, kind of start a career for yourself.
What advice would you give people such as yourself that are alumni looking to coach at their alumni?
I guess start somewhere, like even if it's like a volunteer position. I think that's a big part. We've had a couple people do that so far, and we have a girl that's she's going into coaching high school. She'll be going into coaching high school now, but she tries to stay involved. Like she did a couple of private kind of coaching sessions over the summer just to kind of start kind of getting comfortable with doing that. And I think that's a big thing, just kind of having a good starting place and trying to break into it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the Millersville's track and field program at on social media along with you?
I'm not a social media person, but we do have an Instagram at Healthy Happy Fast. But other than that, I have no social media.
Thank you again, Coach Brittany Hartman, for your interview, and best luck in your future as a throwing coach for Millersville.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Brittany Hartman, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.